Hey everyone, Wendler here, and today we're talking about why your initiator play is weak in Valorant and what you can do to improve it. Hey everyone, my name is Wendler, and I am a coach for Valorant ladder play, and I've helped a few teams trying to break into Tier 3 or trying to climb in Tier 3, some Game Changers teams with analytical work. And so today we're just going to jump into why initiators, I see a lot of struggling initiators, even in coordinated team play along with ranked, and to discuss the major problem I see with it and how we can hopefully improve that issue. So across like all levels right now to a degree, whether it's ranked ladder, whether it's tier 3, sometimes even the bottom end of tier 2 play, there's a common problem where initiators are like being misused to what their full capabilities are. And it's either related to the pacing of play required by the initiator or simply neglecting to be proactive about your utility when you play initiator. The biggest thing I've sort of preached to players, to like initiators I'm helping on coordinated teams, is you want to be proactive with your utility, not reactive. Now, there's a time and place for when you need to be reactive. Like if you're challenging main and they send a sky flash, you want to be reactive to that by sending a flash utility back to make them respect this push, or simply you give them the space that they fought for. And that's obviously protocols you need to establish. But the biggest thing in general is being proactive about what you want to use and where. So as we come around this corner and I'm the only flash agent, I'm going to offer like, hey, I have flash for this. And like, send your flash out.
Flashbang.
You know, and I'm not saying these are like optimal flashes by any means, but send your flash out main. Or with a flash, or send the flash out main. And then as your team scales, say I'm flashing site. So there's different just pieces, ways to use your utility, but you should just be openly calming. Like, hey, I'm gonna flash site for you, then I'm gonna knife close. That way everyone knows, or I'm gonna knife market, or whatever utility you're using, you need to be ahead of. And while it's a duelist job to create space for the team, it's equally on the initiator and the controller to make that as comfortable as possible for the duelist to deal with. Which is why seeing this problem is so frustrating. And like, you have a lot of players that go into ladder play, they're like, I'm getting these bottom frag duelists. And now, while I fully understand there's a lot of players in ranked that just run it down no matter what, but there is a huge issue where sometimes initiators are too self-sufficient, and then it leads to weaker coordinated team play, because then I have these initiators join teams. They're not being proactive about their utility. They're not telling their teammates where they want to use their utility. They're not calming what utility they have. It'd be like a 2-on-1 or a 1-on-2 scenario, and the team that has two people, one of them's an initiator, and they never communicate to their teammate what info they have. And that's just like a general communication thing that you should generate as a team, where like, what do you have available to you? I have flash, I have knife, I have this, so that you can actually generate a game plan. But it's even more critical with initiators, because you have the utility to fight back and gain information and gain space that no other agent really has. So sort of what I've alluded to is that there's two sort of problems. Problem A is players are asking to use their utility, which as an initiator you shouldn't do. Or in problem B is they simply just aren't using their utility at all in the first place. And so what do I mean by asking to use utility? So if we take a Sova
30 seconds left.
too many times, you will have a Sova on attack, and you get to a critical point
Deep breath.
where they need to drone, and this player will not calm that they have drone. They'll not calm they're using drone. They'll not even calm that their drone's available. They just take a dry peek after using a dart.
Scanning ahead.
And it's like, you need to use your utility. Like, you need to tell your team what utility you want to use. Like, it's not hard. You walk up to this, like, if you go to A main, you need to calm your utility. Like, common angle here, A main. We don't have an omen to flash A main out if we need it, which ideally we don't use omen flash. We save it for like generator to hit like a Jenny or to hit dice, etc. But the Sova should be proactive, like, hey, I'm gonna drone this angle and clear this out. But more often than not, the Sova will not do this or wait for someone to tell them to do it. If someone has to tell you to use your clearing utility, then you need to switch roles, like, generally. And that's not, like, either you switch your mental or you switch roles to something else that benefits you, because the whole point of initiators is to be forward. It's to move forward. And if you can't move forward and initiate for your team, why are you on the roll? You should always be looking to use your utility every round in meaningful ways. I mean, everyone I think has experienced the breach player, the player that locks breach, and they just sit and spawn. They use this one time, and then afterwards they just have their full kit available to them with no issues, and they just die with their kit. And it's like it's just not excusable. So with that being said, we'll just go down the list here. So there's a pacing of like fastest to slowest, and then hardest to use and easiest to use. To me, in my personal opinion, KO is the hardest agent initiator to learn, and on top of that, he's also the fastest initiator required to play. So what do I mean by that? Well, with KO's nerf of his right click, where his right click does not last as long in terms of flashing opponents, it took the self-sufficiency away from him. So now he has to be a lot more team-oriented. And to be more team-oriented, you have to go into server time and learn proper flash lineups that can benefit your team accordingly. Because if you don't have these lineups and you come into a game and you do this shit, you're just griefing your team. You're not doing anything. And with the nerf to KO's right click, understanding pop flashes with his left click are so much more important. Like, everyone has seen the famous like Terror clip of, I think, Toto teaching him like this window pop. And like, you need to go into the lab and learn these things, because if you're picking KO, which the whole benefit to him is these left click pop flashes, and you cannot do these efficiently, then you should just pick Sky, because you're not getting value. Your value at this point is a knife and a molly. And then the part that I've sort of mentioned was the pacing of play. So like in ranked, it's really hard to get a flash out here, or if you're right clicking main, and then a second flash out here, and have the team understanding how fast you need to play. There's plenty of examples of like Konpeki and more that show you how fast KO should really be played at a ranked level or even at a high level. And players don't play with that pacing. A lot of players don't even understand timings of executes. There's a finite window you have as an initiator and even as a duelist that you can attack on. And the longer you wait, the faster that window leaves. And at Valorant at a high level, that this game is played in the matter of seconds. Like 1 second too late is the difference between an opponent being in the angle you expected or not being in that angle, is the difference between you living or you dying. So missing these timings, you're just griefing your team. The other main factor is KO's win rate is actually the worst win rate in the game right now for ranked play. Surprisingly enough, he's worse than that of Harbor and Yoru, which Harbor has found a little bit more of a niche role, but it's a lot harder to kind of capitalize on ranked with it. But he's worse win rate than Yoru, and the only rank that changes, I think, when I looked last, was like Iron 2. Every other rank, KO is the worst win rate agent in the game. And I think that's a dual part issue. I think it's because KO is really hard to optimally use, and I think the community equally does not understand the pacing of play or really how to attack on timings as much as they should at this point in Valorant's life cycle. So the next kind of hardest initiator to learn
30 seconds left.
is Sova. And the reason for this is sort of similar to KO and needing lab time to a degree. But
I'll find them.
You just need to know how to use your utility effectively. Like, his utility is very supporty. Like, KO is the fastest initiator in the game to play as. Sova, in my opinion, is the slowest. Like, oftentimes you're supporting from a distance, you're getting your utility out, you're displacing your utility every 30 seconds. Often initiators, it's like referred to as like the 30-second rule, where you burn one piece of info utility every 30 seconds. So you burn your recon dart early, you then have your owl drone for like the mid round to gain the info you need for your team, and then usually you can close out the end round or the final phase of the round with a recon to have for like retake if your team needs it. Too often though, like players just sit on their owl drone and they don't communicate to their team to use it. They don't say that they have it. They don't say like into the round, hey, I'm gonna drone this for you. They just sit here, dry peek this die, and we have no drone clearing utility. And it's just it's a problem. Like, don't wait to use it. Just use it. Like, look for ways to use it. You gotta be proactive when you play initiators. And like there's other things that are like at a high level of play, such as like counter lineups, like having anti-molly lineups if you need for like mid. Common one was Icebox to like counter the sentinels and tube, etc. etc. So let's go to the third one.
30 seconds left.
Good old Gecko. So the problem with Gecko, like very simply, is just the community does not understand how to optimally use them yet. It's been sort of solved at a ranked level, or not a ranked level. It's been sort of solved at like the pro level, where people realize like, hey, Dizzy, you just throw it straight up in the air. If you get shot, it falls right down to your feet anyway. If you get info, you get info. But then you can recur Dizzy to have again later in the round. The same issue goes for Thrash. Players will have Thrash, and commonly they will overextend with Thrash, just looking for whatever. And at this point, if this is early in the round and we're trying to use Thrash for mid info, you're not getting Thrash back. Like, they're defending Thrash if the team is smart. Whereas instead, you should use Thrash early on to gain you info, and then bring Thrash back to you. So that way you have a clean refresh, and you can clear out all of mid for your team to scale up accordingly. And then by the time the 10-second cooldown is done, you then have Thrash to help lead your team for a B exec once they get set up in market. And this is just like one example, but of a way to recur Thrash. But it's just one problem that Gecko players refuse to sort of see. The same thing goes for Wingman, and I think this is kind of the biggest issue with Gecko right now. Is players, even in the Sentinel Mortal, see Wingman, they throw plant, and then they just sit here. Like, you're not capitalizing on the value. Similar to Harbor's Cascade, his moving wall, you can use Wingman as a scale tool. So you can Wingman to plant, and then you can get set up in a better post-plant position because of what Wingman allows you to do. You don't have to worry about planting. So it frees up a body to get in a better post-plant spot. And a lot of players are not capitalizing on this at all. You can even send Wingman go main, and then just have a general molly lineup, which I don't even know if I...
Right there.
Like, there's just a ton of like really simple things you can do that players just burn his utility and they don't recur it. The whole point of Gecko's utility is to burn it and recur it. Like, gain it back, use it multiple times, and keep kind of rolling out that util as you go. Next agent, really short, but talk about Breach. So Breach, I think, is one of the easier agents to sort of use in terms of flash initiators. His kit is relatively straightforward, but similar to every other initiator, players don't openly talk about doing what they want to achieve with him. But similar to any other initiator, players just aren't openly choosing to do anything with him. Like, if I'm Breach, I'm going, alright, I'm stunning Jenny, flashing close to scale. Alright, I'm stunning like Jenny to dice to tree, whatever. Like, I don't even play Breach, but like, as long as you do something and just communicate what you want to do, I don't care. But like, I'm just sick of seeing Breaches die with full flash kit and never using it a single time in a round. It's just the most annoying thing in the world. Calm your utility and use it. Same, like, even with our final two agents, like Sky and Fade.
30 seconds left. Thrifty.
Same
Last
sort of
round
thing
in the
happens where,
What you need. Otherwise, we're going to
like, we have a common angle we need to clear that they might walk up on us on. Like, just calm that you're dogging. Like, hey, I have dog for this. Hey, I'm eyeing sight.
Where are you?
Alright, I'm gonna throw my boathouse.
Where are you?
Like, There's just these common pieces of utility that need to be used. Like Fade and Sky are probably the two easiest agents to use and capitalize on. But because of the
30
lack of
seconds left.
initiation,
50.
unironically,
Switching sides.
it causes like a throw more or
If you
less.
say one of my creatures, it's a good
Like
thing,
you can
alright?
throw Skybird,
Figure out what that
have it scale in the wall, pop, and then you can throw Skybird behind you.
Hawk out.
You can fake the Skybird, which you've seen on TikTok lately.
Hawk out.
There's just plenty of
Hawk out. Hawk out.
plenty of things you can do.
Hawk out.
Or like, hey, this team is pushed up on us to be main. Hey, I'm gonna dog this right away.
Time to
Like, use your dog. But just in general, players need to be comfortable being proactive with their utility. Like if you're playing Sova, your drone needs to be the point of entry. If you're playing Breach, you need to call for your aggressive scaling and smokes. Like a lot of the times you see these solo Breach initiators, right? Someone will lock Breach
30 seconds left.
and we don't have info initiators. So like if you're locking Breach, you need to understand that your condition to win is by getting map control. So like you can stun main here and get an opper to walk up B main and like flash behind them. And now you have an opper set up B main and we have control. You can play for extremities on A. Like we can use, like if we have Omen, which a lot of times you have, we can use the Omen one way. You can get a stun down main and again get set up the same way. And it's just like understanding that's your condition to win with no info. If you're playing Fade or Sky, like use your dog, use the Prowler. If you're playing Gecko, look for ways to refund your utility. If you're playing KO, look at lab time. But I honestly probably wouldn't recommend them at most ranks outside of like 5 stacking or like team premier play, etc. But in general, like the biggest thing I want to see out of initiators is being more proactive with your utility. Don't be afraid to take the lead. Like, hey, I'm gonna flash this corner for you. Like, call it out. Like, there's a game I was playing on Split yesterday where I was playing as Fade, and I used one piece of utility to clear, and then as we skill up, I openly told our Jet, I was like, hey, I have second dog for you, and he goes, send it. Where it's expected that I have utility, and I'm going to use it to set up our Jet to be successful. Because that's how you win the game. So, hope this video kind of helps. I don't know if I'm rambling on a little bit too much, but this is kind of like the first and sort of like commentary videos I've done, so definitely appreciate you watching and hope you guys have a good rest of your night. Peace, peace when they're out.